In Cuba, the high-level delegation for the Colombian peace talks recognized the legitimacy of the delegation of the National Liberation Army and activated the protocols for the resumption of the talks in Havana. In Paraguay, Vice President Hugo Velazquez announced his resignation after being accused by the United States of alleged corruption. Thousands of people gathered in central Seoul on Saturday to stage a protest calling on the South Korean government to suspend its hostile policies toward North Korea and China, including joint military exercises with the United States. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. And we do so in Cuba. The high-level delegation for the peace talks in Colombia recognized the intervention of the ELN delegation and activated the protocols for the resumption of the talks in Havana. In this regard, the director of the Inter-Ecclesiastic Commission for Justice and Peace, Danilo Rueda, announced that the government recognizes the legitimacy of the delegation of dialogues of the National Liberation Army in the search for peace. Both parties emphasized that the resumption of negotiations seeks to demonstrate the willingness of Bogota and the ELN to seek a sustainable peace. In this sense, Rueda asserted that the Colombian government will adopt all political measures to guarantee the necessary conditions to restart the contacts.
This government officially announces that it recognizes the legitimacy of the dialogue delegation of the National Liberation Army, ELN, in the search for peace. Consequently, the government of Colombia will adopt all political and legal measures within the framework of domestic and international law to guarantee the conditions that will permit the resumption of talks with the ELN, including the recognition of the protocols.
In this context, the director of the Inter-Church Commission for Justice and Peace, Danilo Rueda, asserted that the ELN is willing to resume peace talks with the government.
We have confirmed that the ELN shares the Colombian government's desire for peace, that they are listening to the voices of multiple sectors of society that from the territories and different instances are clamoring for a solution to the armed conflict through dialogue. In the meetings held, the delegation has announced that the ELN will take the necessary steps to resume the talks. The parties agree on the need to reinitiate a process of dialogue with facts that demonstrate to Colombian society and to the world that this will is real.
Likewise, Commissioner Danilo Rueda thanked the largest of the Antilles for its hospitality and the accompaniment of international representatives to resume peace in Colombia and the world.
We are grateful once again for the hospitality and the strong commitment of the Cuban people and government to peace in Colombia. A commitment that was personally expressed today by its President Miguel Díaz-Canel. We're also grateful for the efforts of Carlos Ruiz, Special Representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations in Colombia, of John Ottobrov, Special Envoy of the Kingdom of Norway, guarantor of these dialogues, and of Monsignor Héctor Fabio Henao, Delegate of the Catholic Church. We, the participants in this first meeting, are committed to doing our best to foster the stable, lasting, and sustainable peace that Colombia and humanity deserve.
9 people were released in Colombia by the National Liberation Army ELN through the humanitarian mission integrated by the Ombudsman's Office and the Catholic Church. Colombia's Ombudsman Carlos Camargo celebrated the return to their homes of these 9 people who were held by the ELN in the rural zone of Tame in the department of Arauca. Camargo confirmed the willingness of his office to act as a humanitarian channel for these type of actions, which contribute to the reapproachment between the ELN and the government in order to resume the Havana peace talks. The President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, announced this Friday the new military leadership of the National Army and the National Police. The head of state indicated that the new general commander of the military forces will be General Helder Fernand Giraldo Bonilla. General Luis Mauricio Espina Gutierrez will be the commander of the army, and General Henry Armando Sanabria Celi will head the police force. The President also informed that General Luis Carlos Córdoba Avedaño will be the commander of the Air Force. The President also emphasized that the appointments are aimed at guaranteeing the reduction of violence by the security forces and promoting substantial respect for human rights in the country. Also in Colombia, the new leftist government's proposal targets the country's wealthiest residents and tries to reduce tax evasion. The President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, pushes tax reform to fund ambitious social agenda. Our correspondent Viviana Bello with the story.
The proposal includes a tax increase for those making more than $2,300 a month. At a time of budgetary scarcity, there is no room for tax evasion, said the Minister of Finance.
Basically, limiting the very broad tax benefits that these sectors have today, and also in order to correct some problems that are evident in our tax system. And that is that while wage earners are, let's say, with a fairly progressive taxation, and also with few ways to evade taxes, unearned income have multiple benefits, and it happens that, as it has shown in the base, the higher layers of income tends to actually lower tax contributions.
The reform implies a progressive wall taxes on sugary drinks and plastics.
The health rules on sugared beverages and ultra-processed foods are in fact quite coordinated with the proposals of the Ministry of Public Health and the others in the case of carbon emissions, which we are extending. Paradoxically, coal was excluded from the carbon tax, so we're basically extending it to the carbon tax.
The bill sent to Congress includes a 10% levy on exports of oil, coal, and gold, when their prices are above an international reference.
We're going to propose some taxes specifically as a special contribution from the oil, coal, and gold sectors, which are very important mining sectors for our exports and have very high international prices, so that part of the benefits of these high-priced taxes is captured for the national treasury.
Despite the challenges, some economists said that the reform bill could be a model for other progressive governments in the region. From Bogotá, Viviana Bello, teleSUR, Colombia.
The world celebrates this August 13th, the birthday of the historic leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro. 96 years ago today, Fidel Castro was born at Biran, a small town in the present province of Holguín. He adopted leftist and anti-imperialist idea while studying law at the University of Havana. In 1953, he led a failed attack against the second most important military barrack in the country to gather enough weapons to initiate a guerrilla war to overthrow dictator Fulgencio Batista's regime. After 2 years in jail, he went into exile in Mexico and returned by sea to Cuba on December 1956 with 81 compatriots to continue from Cuba's eastern mountains the struggle which finally overthrew Batista's bloody regime on January 1, 1959. The socialist revolution which Fidel Castro led did away with illiteracy, made health services free and available to all Cubans, and guaranteed the social justice Cubans had been fighting for decades. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back from the South. In Paraguay, Vice President Hugo Velazquez announced his resignation after being accused by the United States of alleged corruption. Velazquez informed through a radio program that in addition to his position in the executive branch, he is also resigning his aspiration to participate in the presidential race next year in order to facilitate the investigations of the case. The news comes shortly after the United States ambassador in Paraguay, announced that the official was sanctioned by Washington under allegations of corruption. The State Department also sanctioned members of Velasquez's immediate family, and in previous days the former President Horacio Cartes also for corruption allegations. The Argentinian government gave 48 hours to pharmaceutical laboratories to correct prices according to the agreed levels. After the 7.4% inflation figure for July, the Secretary of Commerce, Matias Tombolini, stated that the business sector is not complying with the price agreements, with emphasis on the laboratories. He detailed that on July 19th, the government signed a price agreement with the pharmaceutical sector for 60 days, which establishes a maximum increase for medicines of up to 1 percentage point below the consumer price index, so that between July and August increases could not exceed 11% of the prices. In Mexico, civil protection authorities announced that conditions are now ready to begin the rescue of 10 workers trapped in a mine in the state of Coahuila. The national coordinator of the organization, Hugo Velazquez, explained that the water extraction process has advanced by 97%, which allows rescuers to safely enter the site. The operation has mobilized some 700 civilian and military personnel who, in addition to draining the fluids, have been working on the excavation of a second alternative access in case they are needed. The President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said that the team in charge of the rescue will continue to evacuate the water retained in the wells to avoid new accidents.
The flooding of the wells, we proceeded from the beginning because that was what the experts advised, to remove the water, to extract all the water. And we have pumps that are extracting an average of up to 300 liters per second. But the wells had a water depth 30 meters approximately. So they have been lowering the water level.
A day of violence in the Mexican city of Ciudad Juárez on Thursday left at least 11 people dead. According to the Subsecretary of Public Safety, Ricardo Mejia, the violence was unleashed by a group of criminals against citizens and commercial premises. The events were caused after a confrontation in the Cerezo 3 prison, when rival groups attacked each other. The authorities detailed that as a result of this situation, members of criminal groups went out to the streets, created disturbances and aggressions against civilians while setting fire to commercial establishments and cars. President López Obrador repudiated the events.
The civilian and innocent population was attacked.
Civil inocente, como una especie de
It's a kind of reprisal.
No fue solo
It's not only the confrontation between two groups, but the moment came when they started shooting at civilians. Innocent people. Most regrettable aspect of this situation.
We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Thousands of people gathered in central Seoul on Saturday to stage a protest calling on the South Korean government to suspend its hostile policy towards North Korea and China, including joint military exercises with the United States. Protesters demanded the government suspend military cooperation between Seoul and Washington and push for a peace treaty and cooperation with Pyongyang. The rally took place near the historic Namdaemun Gate, about 2.5 kilometers from the presidential office. Participants marched towards the office after taking part in a protest. Held in rain, the rally caused severe traffic congestion. Taliban firefighters beat women protesters on fire into the air on Saturday as they violently dispersed a rare rally in the Afghan capital, days ahead of the first anniversary of the hardline Islamists' return to power. About 40 women chanting bread, work and freedom marched in front of the Education Ministry building in Kabul, before the fighters dispersed them by firing their guns into the air. Some women protesters who took refuge in nearby shops were chased and beaten by Taliban fighters with their rifle butts. The protesters carried a banner which read "August 15 is a black day," as they demanded rights to work and political participation. After seizing power, the Taliban had promised a softer version of the harsh Islamist rule that characterized their first stint in power from 1996 to 2001, but many restrictions have already been imposed. In Spain, one person was killed and dozens were injured when high winds caused part of a stage to collapse at a dance music festival. The incident occurred near the Spanish city of Valencia in the early hours of Saturday, regional emergency services said. Authorities report that the man was hit by part of the concert stage that was torn off by the wind. Other infrastructure was also damaged when gusts battered the Medusa Festival, a huge electronic music festival held over 6 days in the east coast town of Cullera. Of the injured, 3 suffered serious trauma injuries and 14 had more minor injuries, regional emergency services tweeted. Regional health authorities said later that 40 people were attended to. Europe faces an unprecedented drought crisis as a result of the extreme heat that has caused massive forest fires in several countries in the region. According to the European Drought Observatory, the latest combined indicator map shows that 47% of the territory of the European Union is under warning, while 17% is under alert. Experts from the observatory have pointed out that the current drought could become the worst ecological crisis in the last 500 years. They say that the extreme heat has not only caused massive forest fires, but also a lack of water, which threatens to disrupt river transport and water reservoirs. Efforts continue in France to fight forest fires, which have burned more than 6,000 hectares in the southeast of the country. According to official reports, nearly 1,100 firefighters are still working to put out the fires with the help of extinguishing force from Germany, Poland, Austria and Romania, with the use of several European Union air tankers. According to the French government, the outbreaks remain active this Friday in the departments of Gironde and the Landes, where at least 10,000 people have been evacuated, some for the second time this summer. According to the Ministry of the Environment, a total of more than 40,000 hectares have burned this year. Deadly seasonal floods have collapsed more than 2,500 houses in eastern Sudan, adding that the situation has displaced thousands in the region. Another 546 houses were partially destroyed by torrential rains in River Nile province since the start of the rainy seasons in May. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimates that 38,000 people have been affected by floods in the East African country. The total number of casualties nationwide is still undetermined. Sudan's rainy season usually lasts until September, with floods peaking between August and September. teleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on screen are in place since July 1st, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us, and our stories are heard in other faraway nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and unfaithfulness to our audience. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.